Hey everybody, this is Chris, MTGO's Rex Dart, and we're back for this week's episode of Show and Tell, the series that continues to take you week by week through the Legacy Tribal Wars format as it is played in the Tribal Apocalypse Playrun event. And this past Saturday was a Commander Tribal event, and I am given to understand that there were some sort of logistical problems during round one. Maybe deck registration issues, more than one perhaps. I was not present during the beginning of the tournament, so anyways, when I got to the tournament, I was able to capture some footage of what I thought was the top table, but apparently there was one more round afterwards. But I'm going to show you this week. This was Silvos. What was his whole name? Silvos der Benny. This was his Shaman deck featuring Sachi, daughter of Seshiro. He won round one and round two, but apparently could not beat Endless Nameless's Scion of the Ur-Dragon deck in the final table. So the coverage that I'm going to have is of a complete match, which Silvos wins rather handily with these Shamans. So I thought, well, I better take a look at this one. But again, props to Endless Nameless for getting his third win of the year already. Second of this season, I guess, if you only count after the Invitational, but I think you count from the beginning of the year. So props to him, and also props to Slug360 with using the Law and Order hybrid of the Soldiers and Advisors with Gaddock Teague. So nice one all around. And let's take a look at this. This is a mono green mana ramp deck. And these are one of the decks you'll hear me talk, editorialize a little bit about it in the live audio commentary that I recorded, which will be up next. But I'm usually pretty afraid of mono green mana ramp guy if I sit down at a table with him. It's one of those archetypes that just seems to pretty much demand that you hit a reset button pretty quickly, and if you don't, it can just completely carry itself away if it's well built, which this one is, and we're going to look at some of the card choices here. But the very key thing is that Sachi, first of all, who I like, because me and Kuma both did pretty well in regular tribal with Sachi-based snake decks that mana ramped into various baddies. But all of these Shamans, any of them that you get out here, will be able to tap for 2 green mana once you get Sachi out. So you can just dump all these Shamans out of your hand onto the battlefield in the first few turns, then bring out Sachi, and then you can immediately tap these guys for mana, whoever you've put out earlier, even the nice little woodland changeling there. A lot of the rest of this is cheat stuff into play, give things haste, reuse abilities, typical mana elf stuff. But let's go ahead and skip over to a couple things I want to show. First of all, talking about the win condition. You can just win with some of these fat creatures or just even a horde of them, but the way you're going to see the game play out in the round that I recorded, and I imagine one of the ways that the deck is designed to play out, is to use Wild Beastmaster, which whenever Wild Beastmaster attacks, each other creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is Wild Beastmaster's power. So obviously you want to have some way to pump that up, and there are many mana-intensive and less mana-intensive ways to do that, but Giganomancer will take care of that nicely. Wild-Heart Invoker, as many times as you can pay that. Umbral Mantle, remember, and you'll see it come up, you can tap Wild Beastmaster for mana because it's a Shaman if Sachi's out, and then you could use the untap ability with Umbral Mantle in order to give it +2/+2, and that's a net loss of 1 mana, but if you have a bunch of mana floating, you can do that over and over, and really pump up the Beastmaster's power. Pendelhaven Elder, a little smaller, but that is a 1/1, so that does get a bonus there. Nurture Initiate, if you're going off, casting a bunch of spells, drawing a bunch of cards, you can pump it up that way. Llanowar Augur will also give a boost to the Beastmaster or to anybody who needs it. So that's one way, and then obviously something like a Chroma's Memorial to just swing a whole team, in with flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protection from black and from red, can be very solid. So that was sort of the win condition. But what I liked here is how many cards are devoted to keeping the velocity of this deck going. And in the match we're going to see, you will see Wild Pair pretty much be taking over the game. But a lot of these cards, the same could have been played out with many of these. It's a problem with mana ramp decks that you have all sorts of mana and then nothing to do with it. So you have to devote a lot of your deck, if possible, to draw spells and other tutors to sort of just keep yourself going. And of course, it's also important to have that sort of thing as a recovery from a board wipe. But let's take a look at what he's got here. Genesis Wave, obviously, an enormous amount of card advantage if you already have a big board. Court of Calling can tutor for whatever he needs to keep things going. Garrick's Horde allows him to cast the top card of his library if it's a creature card, so sort of like a green future sight here. He does have 42 creatures in this list, just FYI. Wild Pair, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, assuming you cast it from your hand, you can search your library for another creature with the same total power and toughness, which you'll hear me refer to in the video as Girth, which is what the guys in Magic's R&D department call the power toughness total, and you can put that onto the battlefield. So of course, putting that one onto the battlefield doesn't trigger it again. That's why it has the if you cast it from your hand part on there, so it isn't going infinite. Soul of the Harvest, you draw a card whenever a creature enters the battlefield. Again, just keeping the velocity of your deck going is the idea here. Primordial Sage, basically the same thing. Lurking Predators lets you do somewhat of the same thing whenever your opponent casts a spell. So sort of like Rhystic Study or some of those other blue draw spells. Anytime any opponent in a multiplayer game, this would make this much better. You get to reveal the top of your library and put it into play if it's a creature. Primal Command lets you tutor for a creature card, and it also has some removal of versatile ability there. So Oracle of Moldiah is sort of the future sight of lands, although you can only play one additional land with this fellow. Call of the Wild lets you reveal the top of your library, put it on the battlefield if it's a creature. Fierce Empath allows you to search for a creature 6 power or greater. Harbinger sort of worldly tutors for an elf card, but you can find anyone, and then you could even, then if it's on the top of your library, put it out with Call of the Wild or have it ready for, say, Lurking Predators there. Fauna Shaman not only lets you tutor up any creature in the deck for discarding another creature, it's also worth noting that these top of your library effects like Oracle of Moldiah and Lurking Predators are going to work very nicely just having a shuffle, so that you can shuffle away something that's blank and get another shot at getting a good reveal off of one of those. Over here I've put all the just sort of draw spells, Collective Unconscious, Tower of Fortunes. All these are pretty mana intensive, but deck has that in spades. Slate of Ancestry, you do see this in, I've seen it in some elf lists and regular Legacy Tribal Wars, certainly around the casual room before, but you can draw an awful lot of cards off of that one. Needless to say, Harmonize, Momentous Fall, if he's got a fatty to sack to it, pretty nice. Hunter's Insight could draw you a ton of cards. Elvish Visionary, not as much. Adia Seer, I don't remember how to say this. It's a planar chaos time-shifted version, or color-shifted version, I guess, of Sindbad from the Arabian Nights expansion, who had the same ability, but in blue. Bloodline Shaman is somewhat similar, but for creature types instead of lands. And Nantuko Shaman can also draw you a card, depending if you have no tapped lands. Anyways, that's how he's built this deck to kind of keep the velocity of it going, and that's really the key between a good mana ramp deck and a bad mana ramp deck, is once you've developed your board a little, how do you just keep from stalling out? And I really like the deck building here, so good job, Silvos. Now that's going to be all for the deck tech this week, and the next 3 videos are going to be a complete match, which was played between Silvos and, let's see, it was this round 2 table here. Slug 360, Super Secret Tech, and Robin 88. So stay tuned for that, and I will join you next week with some more deck techs and videos and whatnot. So stay tuned for the replay.